Hello and welcome into the Rundown with Caleb and Casey. We're on a Thursday afternoon. It is February 20th, and we're here to introduce you to the podcast today. The brand new Rundown. I'm just kidding. It just feels like it's been that long since we've actually recorded.
Been a while.
It's been over 3 weeks, I think, at this point. Last time we podcasted was
Before Kansas and Iowa State played.
true. I think it was even before the K-State game that Iowa State lost as well.
Might have been.
Man, maybe that's why Iowa State went on a little tumble there for a second because
And Kansas.
And Kansas is also on a tumble.
Might be the move. We're back now.
We're back.
Weather's holding up again.
Oh man,
Had
it's
a couple canceled.
it is
snow.
freezing in Ames, Iowa. This is the coldest weather I think my body has ever been in before.
I think consistently.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. It's probably been even colder at a point in time, but over the course of like a week and a half,
Oh,
it's pretty bad.
I'm
And then-
not here for it, man.
Traversing campus as well. You know, it's a first world problem, but at some point it just makes you mad. And
Still a problem, you know?
it is man, that's a wise thing to say. It is still a problem. You're right.
Thank you.
Just occurring in the first world. Okay. Yes, again, back for the first time in 3 weeks here. Hopefully you as the audience didn't miss us too much, although I'm sure you did, which is understandable. But yes, we're not going to do the thing where we kind of try and hit on everything we've missed. That's just probably going to take up way too much time. So we'll kind of just summarize maybe a few of the things that we have missed and make it more of a timely podcast here today. But Casey, I suppose we can just start with Cyclone hoops here off the bat. And interesting, we haven't podcasted again since before the K-State game, which was on February 1st. The last one we did was recapping, analyzing the Caleb Love 3/4 shot, which feels like an eternity ago at this point.
Yeah.
But we haven't really been able to cover this like emotional roller coaster over the last 3 weeks or so, where Iowa State goes on a 3-game losing skid. Obviously, the Arizona one, then you drop to both the Kansas schools. Casey never got to do his Rock Chalk Jayhawk intro.
It's not even worth it at this point.
Yeah, you wouldn't have too much pride doing that.
No, there's no smiles on my face anymore.
Oh man, yikes! I'm sorry, brother.
We'll get to that.
It hurts. At least Kansas has you guys have got national championships to lean on and stuff like that.
And
but
baseball now. We got a good baseball team.
yeah, Kansas baseball. That's a good point. Plus Omaha Nate. Oh no. Well, who's the guy? Carter Navin? Is he at Kansas or is he at Omaha?
He's at Omaha
He
now.
was at Kansas for a little bit,
committed
right?
there and then decommitted and ended up at Omaha.
Okay. Shout out your former teammate on
Former teammate,
Elkhorn Select
Good
Black,
friends.
right?
Yeah.
Also the former home of Harrison Waddell.
Yeah.
Oh man, we
Elite baseball player.
we had a couple games between Elkhorn Select Black and Select White back in the day. Actually, we were Select Blue is what we were, but I think you guys swept us 2-0 or 3-0.
Can you believe I'm the only starting pitcher from that rotation to not be pitching in Division I right now?
That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Alex Thomas originally committed to Northwestern after 1 year transferred to Butler.
Okay.
Navin commits to Kansas, transfers to UNO, and I commit to do coaching.
I was gonna
for a
say,
different sport.
Who's really winning here? Because you're the only one out of that rotation who's coaching an all Iowa Attack boys basketball team. So
Yeah, I am the only one to win an AAU basketball tournament as a head coach out of the
I
group.
think we need to reevaluate what really is succeeding here. But
Mhm.
anyway, goodness gracious, how in the world did we get on that?
I don't know. Come for Gottlieb's spot at Green Bay at this point.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably not a hard spot to get.
Not really.
2-24, 2-25. I mean, they're pushing Mississippi Valley State at this point. But yeah. Anyway, how did we even get on that? I'm literally trying to remember
I'm confused what you said.
where we started.
Yeah, I'm already lost.
We were talking Kansas and then baseball. Okay, that's how.
Yeah,
okay,
Kansas
that
baseball.
made sense. Okay.
The logical jump
Yes.
to
of
Harrison
course.
Waddell.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Harry. Okay. So Iowa State loses 3 straight and then bounce back to win 4 straight now. Things have gotten rolling again. Now, I think there's a sense of Well, they haven't really proven that they're back yet because the 4 games they've played in a row have been against pretty mediocre to bad teams, right?
Yeah.
TCU, UCF, or actually Central Florida, and then Cincinnati and Colorado on Tuesday night, which, I mean, the best team out of those 4 would probably be, at this point, I would probably go with, it's either TCU or Cincinnati.
TCU's the
which,
only one above 500 in the
Yeah,
conference out
yeah.
of those 2. Cincinnati's 5-10 in conference.
Wow. Yeah. So they could be on the bubble though now after that Texas Tech win the other night. That's a sneaky. I don't know how much to put into that investment wise, but we'll see. Anyway, the biggest storyline here though is the re-addition of Milan Momcilovic coming back from injury. Obviously that was a big factor that I think derailed the team for a few weeks. Is not having him is a huge deal, and he came back for that TCU game, College Game Day, and everything has just looked so much more in sync since then, right? Offensively, Iowa State still forcing a lot of turnovers. That's a problem.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be fixed before the tournament. But everything's a lot more in sync offensively. Spacing is much better. The half court is it's an entirely different look than what it was in late January, early February. And really, too, I think a lot of guys just benefit from having him back. You're seeing guys play more confidently. I think Curtis Jones has been maybe the biggest benefactor of Milan Momcilovic coming back. He's been like his early January self at this point. But, yeah, I mean, you're at a spot now where you go into Houston this weekend and things are back on track here. But now here comes that statement game. You know, with Milan Momcilovic back, what does this team look like against a really good team? And probably, I mean, your hardest conference game of the year by far, maybe second hardest comparison to Auburn, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I think when Milan went out, we talked about, maybe this is a good thing. Like, defensive side of the ball is going to get a little bit better because Milan struggled there. Offensively, you still have all the guys to back it up, but we saw that Milan offensively, he brings numbers. Everyone brings up numbers, but he allows more spacing, right? You can't have guys help off of Milan because he can punish you there. And when he goes out, when you do put in Heisey or whether you do put in an extra big or something like that, they tend to help off a lot. Clogs up the lane for Curtis, clogs up the lane for Keyshawn, Taman, these guys that like to get downhill and then work their way back. And now all of a sudden with an extra defender in the lane, it makes things more difficult. Guys get more contested shots, more turnovers in the lane. You got another post right there. Milan coming back, it's allowed them to spread out the floor. It's allowed the guards to still get downhill, but now they don't have to score when they get downhill. They can kick it out to the corner. They can look for a different, kick it out and reverse it all the way around and get a different look. And Milan's really allowed that to happen. And defensive side of the ball, it's still the same Iowa State that we've seen all year.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, I think the craziest thing to see is just like, again, you mentioned it there, how much more effectively some of these guys can just play offensively with him in the rotation, with him back. Even if he's not on the floor, there's just this added sense of confidence. But then, too, I mean, Curtis Jones being able to come off the bench, it's very clear that that's where he thrives, is that sixth-man role. And it's really a fascinating deal. But I think psychologically it's just a real thing. And like you said, I mean, Keyshawn Gilbert now, he looks way more confident when he drives the ball to the rack. And you're kind of at a spot, too, because I felt like for a lot of the season, Taman Lipsey, everybody was kind of like, what's going on with Taman? I think the whole deal with him was like he wasn't having the same numbers as last year because he didn't have to. He never had to, like, take over the team offensively. For a stretch there when Milan was hurt, he was kind of starting to put up those numbers again that he did have. Like, he was playing good basketball even when Milan was hurt. Everybody else, not so much at all.
Yeah.
But it was because Taman kind of had to reassert himself into that role of, like, take over on offense sometimes. Now you're back to, distributor Taman, just a beast on defense Taman. And I think that's the best role for Taman Lipsey. You talk about Heisey, you talk about Chatfield. Those guys look way different with Milan back in the lineup. It's just everybody. It's kind of a domino effect. It's a trickle-down effect where everybody just benefits from him being back in the lineup, some more than others. But, yeah, I mean, here we are now in late February. Everything is certainly back on track. Everything's still in front of you, aside from a Big 12 regular season championship. That's probably all but lost. Now, if you can beat Houston this weekend, maybe some crazy things happen. But I think at this point, whatever on that, I think your main goal has got to be establish yourself in that 2-seed line. If you can win this weekend, I think Iowa State is back in that low 1-seed consideration. Obviously, they're probably still not on that line yet, but their schedule the rest of the way is favorable enough to where they can achieve some more pretty high-quality wins and get themselves potentially back onto that 1-seed line, depending on what happens.
I will say, though, if you do beat Houston this weekend, you would just have to tie with them, I believe. So Iowa State would have to win out. Houston would have to lose 2 more games after this. Their schedule is pretty difficult. They end the season Cyclones on the Saturday.
Okay.
And then Monday they go to Texas Tech, who's
hot
right now.
Well, and in Lubbock as well for a game like that.
Yeah.
That place will be rocking.
That place will be crazy. Tune-up game against Cincinnati, who, they could bounce back. They've thrown some good games at teams. They've shown flashes. It's just inconsistency.
And Jizzle James if that guy was on a better team, he's a star. And he played really well against Iowa State. I was nervous he was going to find a way to get them that victory. Luckily, the Clones pulled away at the end. But, to your point, that's not a cakewalk at all.
And then they, Kansas, who we don't know what Kansas is. Kansas doesn't know what Kansas is. And then to Baylor, who, they're still fighting with teams. They're still really competitive.
Where's that Kansas game at?
It's in Houston.
That's okay. Because the one in Allen Fieldhouse was just the crazy finish. Sorry to reinvigorate that memory.
Flashbacks to that.
No, you're right. That's not an easy schedule at all. And even with that Kansas game, it's what Kansas shows up. Maybe you get the one with this supreme talent and it gels. None of those games, there's no Oklahoma State, there's no Colorado, there's no UCF there. I think obviously you got to take care of business on Saturday first, which is absolutely not a guarantee whatsoever. Iowa State is a 7 to 8 point underdog. Saturday's game is very, very difficult. And so I want to make sure that people listening and watching right now who may be, maybe Iowa State loses on Saturday and, you feel obviously, despondent about that, but maybe a little bit frustrated. It's the second, maybe the hardest game on your schedule. A game at the Fertitta Center against Houston. It's probably 1A, 1B with that neutral site game against Auburn.
I think it's tougher than Auburn because I think Auburn hadn't really hit their stride like
True.
They have now. I think when you look back at it, obviously it's like Auburn is this fantastic team, but I don't think they were quite at the level that they are now, whereas Houston, they've hit their stride. They're 14-1, almost undefeated in conference play, 22-4 nationally. They're in these top 4 conversations consistently, and now you got to go to their place.
And I'm really surprised. I would agree with you there. I'm really surprised that when you look around at different bracketologists and things of that nature, they're still a 2-seed by most accounts, which is very interesting to me, and I don't agree with it at all, because they're third in the net, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their quad 1 record is 5-4, which is just as good as Duke, just as good as Florida. They've had less quad 1 games than Tennessee and Alabama. I don't know. I've seen from Joe Lenardi, I've seen from some of the Fox and CBS bracketologists, they're still kind of that high 2-seed, which I think at this point I'd put them in the 1-seed line.
I think with Missouri's win over Alabama, if Houston beats Iowa State, you got to put them at the 1
Probably,
seed, right? That's a higher quality win.
And they're third in KenPom too, so third KenPom, third in net. So the metrics love Houston, which they always do.
Metrics always love Houston.
They're a metrics merchant, Houston is. But yes, I agree.
It's going to be – this is going to be a fantastic March. I cannot wait for this. It's going to be tough, but it's anyone's game. And I think we're seeing it. It's a different landscape. SEC is really taken over. Can they prove themselves in the postseason? Big 12 holding on to, that constant number 1 seed that they have. Big 10, Are they true? Are they frauds? We'll find out more as we go.
Yeah.
There's a lot of storylines coming together and a lot of talent and teams that are fighting for spots.
I'm really curious to see how the SEC fizzles out here in March because I don't think they're going to have all 3 of the 4 1 seeds. Obviously, Duke, as long as they take care of business, is right there, probably at that number 2 overall seed right now.
Yeah.
And then most people would have it as Auburn, Alabama, and Florida at this point with the other 3 1 seeds. It's probably a matter of their schedules going forward, but I would bet that there is some sort of, cannibalism in that conference where it's not going to be 3 of the 4 1 seeds. That'd be crazy if so, but I doubt that.
I think if Houston wins regular season and postseason Big 12, you can't not give them a 1 seed.
Right. I would agree. Yes.
And if Iowa State upsets Houston, beats Arizona as well, and goes on to get a top 2 finish or a first place finish in postseason, I don't see why we couldn't be in that conversation. Alabama loses to Missouri. They've still got a decent schedule coming up. There's a lot of teams that I think nothing's set in stone right now.
The one bummer, and I feel like we saw this on display last year, not just with Iowa State, with other teams too, other conferences, but I feel like it was accentuated with Iowa State, is it doesn't seem like the committee values conference tournaments that much anymore. And I feel like they used to. Maybe they still do. Maybe it was just like last year they kind of, I don't know. I think a lot of it is they already have most of the field set before conference tournament weekend.
Yeah.
And they use those conference tournaments as more of a way for the bubble teams to sneak in or sneak out.
Yeah.
But I don't know. See, it's like Iowa State, definitely more focused on the regular season right now. But in terms of the Big 12 tournament, does a Big 12 tournament championship, is that enough to, let's say, propel them up 1 seed, depending on how the rest of the regular season goes? I don't know. That's something we'll worry about when we get there. But yeah. Just to throw it out, since we mentioned Houston's metrics, Iowa State is 8th in the net and 9th in KenPom right now. And it was interesting. They actually, KenPom, this is a very legit, KenPom goes nose deep in just the weeds of everything that happens in college basketball. Iowa State was actually ahead of Texas Tech when they beat Colorado and the Texas Tech TCU game was still going on. And then even after Texas Tech lost TCU, they jumped back over Iowa State. And I think it had something to do with another result. Somebody explained it. It was just all these different connections and stuff going on. It might have been the Arizona result from the night. Something happened where another game's result propelled Texas Tech above Iowa State and KenPom even after Iowa State won, Texas Tech lost that night.
Yeah.
Just wild, mind-boggling stuff.
They've got numbers and statistics and, functions for all this stuff that we couldn't even think to comprehend.
Correct.
And that's why they make a lot of money.
Oh, you know what? I think I know what it was. So what bumped – okay, so Iowa State beat Colorado. Texas Tech lost TCU. Iowa State was above Texas Tech by a spot. It was the Kansas-BYU game. BYU beat Kansas, right?
Handedly.
And beat them by a lot. And Texas Tech has beaten BYU. So BYU's metrics increase after that win, which means that win looks way better for Texas Tech. I think that some people are arguing that's what got Texas Tech back above Iowa State even after the results from Tuesday.
That would do it.
Which is, that's just mental gymnastics. But metrics are metrics, whatever. It's very interesting to analyze.
Yeah, definitely. And what's crazy is how far outside of the top 10 Texas Tech is compared to Iowa State as well. Iowa State 18th and 12th, Texas Tech 11th and 35th in offensive and defensive respectively. So it is kind of interesting. There's so much more involved in all this stuff that it takes away your offense and defense. Obviously, those are still a factor, but it's going to take the results that you have and not focused about what you will do, which I like that.
Yeah. I agree. It's very interesting, and I'm glad that this has become a big aspect of bracketology in college basketball. Yeah, and then as well, in terms of bracketology, Iowa State is. I know Joe Lenardi, his latest one, has Iowa State as a 2 seed in Milwaukee, which I think is probably that's about as good of a region as you'll get.
Yeah.
It's the same total region as Auburn, and that would take place down in Atlanta. So obviously, you're at a disadvantage there in terms of location. But I mean, really, when you look at Iowa State's schedule going forward, Houston on Saturday at Houston. You continue the road trip at Oklahoma State on Tuesday night. That should be a brush over. That's they're a bad team this year. Hopefully,
it's Big 12.
Yes. Well, and if Iowa State wins Saturday, that could be a dangerous sleepwalking type of game. Come back home, revenge tour game against Arizona on Saturday next week. That's
Red
a
Panda.
massive one. Red Panda in the house. Are you going to be there?
I will be.
Let's go.
Last tournament's this weekend, so
Huge, dude.
off next week.
Yeah, I think the boys, which the boys being Casey and myself, along with some others, will probably have to be camping out for the Arizona game.
You get that front line seat.
Yeah, absolutely for Red Panda.
Bring your passports.
And Tyrese Halliburton Olympic banner getting dropped in Hilton on
yeah.
Saturday next week. It's going to be a huge.
Hopefully they
huge
drop
deal.
it right side up.
Yeah, I mean it's literally like you've got Iowa State revenge tour against Arizona, two, probably top 15 teams. You've got Tyrese Halliburton getting his Olympic banner a little bit over that, and then a wide margin, and then Red Panda.
Red Panda.
Yep.
Yeah. Red Panda for the first time in Ames and
She was actually there last year.
Last year?
Yeah.
I can remember if she was there last year or the year before.
Yeah. Just flipping bowls.
Flip bowls. That's what we pay to see. Allegedly, there's a basketball game.
Yeah. I don't know. Not too worried about that. Last weekend they had, for the Cincinnati game, they had the amazing Sladek. He's like this 67-year-old guy that like balances on top of chairs. It's crazy.
Oh.
Like a 67-year-old body shouldn't be able to do that. But it was kind of frightening.
So it's John Backus.
Basically, yes. Yeah, John Backus could do that too.
Yeah.
So then, Arizona continue the home stretch against BYU on Wednesday that next week, which is, another tough game. Great opportunity, though, at this point. Like that, to me, that one gets me excited because that'll be a tough game, but it's at home, and then that's a good opportunity to have another good win on the resume. And then at Kansas State the following Saturday for the final conference game, another revenge tour game. It'll be packed in Bramlage for that one. Mm-hmm. So it's a tough final 5 games aside from that Okie State one, but there's so many great opportunities here to where if things go right, you're back in that 1 seed conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And that BYU game I'm really interested for because it's strength on strength. BYU's offense, coached by a former NBA assistant coach.
Sure.
They bring that kind of style of game. Their offense has been really hard-nosed, high productive against Iowa State's strong defense. It's going to be interesting, just strength versus strength, immovable immovable object versus, I'm forgetting what the saying is.
Unstoppable force,
Unstoppable
right?
force versus immovable object going head-to-head. So
that's what it'll be.
good one.
Yeah, that should be a good one for sure. Last year's BYU game in Hilton was awesome. That was a big comeback for the Cyclones. Taman Lipsey had a massive game, but
really only one non-entertaining game the way out. To me,
Yeah.
it's that Okie State game.
Exactly. I would 100% agree with you on that, Casey. Every single one aside from that one has a big storyline.
And that one, I mean, if you win against Houston, that's a sleeper game that you have to watch because it's like, oh no, like we might overlook this game.
Right.
So it's, pedal to the metal all the way down full throttle to finish out this season.
No doubt about it. That's why we love college basketball. Shall we talk a little Big 12 here? We already talked about Houston, so we don't need to spend a ton of time on them. But
they're good.
They're a pretty good basketball program down there in the old Big H. I think we got to start, Casey, with your Hawks.
Got it.
I'll give you the floor here if you've got some words to say.
Really bad is, kind of the saying. They didn't have 6 or more losses in conference play since the day I was born.
Ooh.
Caleb. Day I was born. Never had
Was Bill Self, was he the coach at that point?
Yes, he got signed, I believe, the year before we were born. I was 2 years before you. And now they're sitting with 7 conference losses after dropping 3 of their last 4 rivals, Kansas State, hanging on against Colorado and then losing at Utah and BYU in a state trip to the mountains, I guess. But not a lot's connecting right now. Self said, he hoped this trip would bring them closer and they could spend some time. And after the BYU game, all he said was, "We need a break from each other." So nothing looking like it's getting going. Nothing looking like, hey, there's some hope here. With all this talent that we talked about preseason, I mean, number one across every metric preseason up there. It was them and Duke. Who's going to win it all between those two powerhouses and Duke's youth versus Kansas's
And Kansas
transfers.
beat Duke earlier in the year.
Yeah, beats Duke early in the year. They're only hanging in. They're really only hanging in to the top 25 based on name and early schedule, in my opinion, because you lose to Kansas State, who's barely 500. You lose to Utah, who's under 500 in the conference. And then the last loss was, blanking right now. I just scrolled past it. BYU, who they're better. I mean, they're above Kansas now in conference, so I guess that's good. But games that you shouldn't lose with Kansas across your chest.
Sure, that's the big thing too, and you're seeing former players on Twitter and online. Cole Aldrich, notably one. Didn't he say put in the managers?
Yeah, put in the
they
managers.
care.
Maybe they care. I think the managers are like first in the Big 12.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's time to do that then. You saw. Christian. I've seen Christian Brown. He's pretty vocal on that app. Landon Lucas was saying stuff as well. Like you've got guys. Like clearly, that's obviously people are paying attention to this, and those guys have been in this culture before. They've been in this program before. They know what it means, obviously, to, like you said, wear Kansas across their chest.
Yeah.
And so they know, what that's supposed to look like on the floor, and they're certainly not seeing it with this team, which to me, that's kind of like the biggest red flag is like when you've got former players that are calling out current players and seeing that something is visibly wrong. Like it's one thing if it's just not a very talented team that doesn't click, but at least they're still, playing to that Kansas standard of culture and really care about the whole, beware, pay heed, all who enter, whatever you guys say down there. That's I don't know. I guess the point I'm making here, and you really said it already perfectly, but it's just pretty clear that this roster that Kansas has this year hasn't gelled and certainly doesn't have a lot of guys who really care too much about winning at this point.
Yeah, no. I completely agree. You've got to turn things around right now if you want any semblance of it because, bracketology has them as I think they were like a 5 last. Yeah, they're a 5 seed going against 12 seed McNeese, who, just like Samford last year, that's an upset waiting to happen. Like, so that's a fantastic team with a great coach. That's waiting to happen. And then you face Michigan State in the second round. 2 legendary coaches with really hot starts and now are kind of cooling off as we go down the stretch.
Yeah.
The question is, do they deserve it? We're kind of at the point where it's like, should they be in the top 25? I don't think so. I think it'd be a reality check. Like, oh shit, we're not in the top 25. Like,
when was the last time that happened? It has to have been a long time, right?
Couldn't even tell you, dude. We're on pace for North Carolina's second year under Hubert Davis.
Yeah, right.
Kind of.
Well, that's exactly, honestly, I don't think it's quite as bad as that was.
No, because we'll still make the tournament.
Right. Yeah. But it definitely feels similar to that, where you're bringing all these really good guys in, bringing a lot of good guys back, number one ranking preseason, and then just a massive fall off.
Yeah, and you've got Okie State and Colorado coming up. Okie State's at home, Colorado's on the road. Those are 4th place and last place, respectively, in the conference. Then you got to play Texas Tech. Then you got to go to Houston.
Where's that Texas Tech game at?
Home.
Okay.
And then you finish the season with Arizona at home.
Oh, wow.
None of those games are
gauntlet.
easy.
Yeah.
Like, if you've got essentially till March 1st to figure out, do we want it? How are we turning it around? And what's the future look like?
Yeah.
Is Hunter playing 35 minutes a game? He shouldn't. Just flat out shouldn't.
Yeah.
He didn't look like he wanted to play on the court. How much are we playing Flory? He's a lottery pick right now. He's not going to come back here with how this season's going.
Yeah.
Are we going to do that? What's Zeke minutes? KJ and Dewan, are they starting playing 30 minutes a game, or we gonna bump them down to 20 and see if these young guys coming off the bench? I mean, you go out, you have Shaquille Moore, you have Diggy, Rakeem Passmore, who's a true freshman. Like, you've got these talented guys on your bench. Nobody is owed anything right now. I get these guys have played here for 4 years, but it's like, just because you've been here 4 years doesn't mean you're automatically guaranteed to play.
Yeah.
Like, you still have to prove that you mean business this season.
Yeah. It's fascinating. And it seems like, Bill Self is just, he's, one of the greatest coaches in college basketball history. And some could even make a case that he is the best. But it's interesting that it just doesn't seem like he is adapting at all lineup wise to it's almost like he's pinpointing their struggles on the wrong thing, right?
Yeah.
Like the things I've seen at least have been like, he's wanting to continue to play DeJuan Harris and KJ Adams and those guys because they give more effort, right? Which, I mean, at this point, I feel like I don't even know if that's as much of a problem. It doesn't feel like anybody out there is really giving that much effort for Kansas. It's probably more of you got to play the guys that are giving you efficient minutes.
Yeah, and I don't know what kind of the plan is going forward, but, that's kind of been, you have moments where, like, people are calling the players out, and it's like, well, he's not doing good enough. And then they'll have games where they do good, and people are like, no, it's not good enough. We should have done this instead. And it's like, well, if you want to change, you have to give and take.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when they do good, you have to let them play, and you have to let them stay in consistently and give them credit. But when they're not playing good, you've got such a deep roster. I mean, the problem with last season was you had no depth. You had to play those guys. You had 5, 6 guys you could put out on the court. This year you've got 8, 9 guys, but you're throwing 5 or 6 out on the court like it's last year.
Yeah.
You've got to make some sort of change.
It's an interesting deal. It's an interesting case study to me. Because, like, this is obviously a very expensive roster, right? Kansas has paid Hunter Dickinson a lot of money.
Too much.
Some of these guys a lot of money. I saw online his major is general studies. So he's in his 6th year of college basketball, and he's studying general studies.
Major is going to be European basketball if he's not careful.
Oh man, yeah. I don't even know if the LinkedIn allegations would really make that much sense. With general studies. But yeah, I suppose I don't know. It's like, is this an indictment of the go out and get a bunch of the best players in college basketball and they just don't gel? Like, do you think that's maybe what the issue is here, or is this more of just a Bill Self hasn't coached them well enough, or maybe these guys just, I don't know, some of them are just head cases, and I'm sure it's kind of a mix of all three.
But I think we'll never know, obviously. But it is interesting, like you said. There's so many factors, and transfer portal is a huge thing. And now we're seeing Kansas lands the #1 transfer portal in basketball. It's not working out for them. What was it? Colorado landed the #1 football transfer portal. Not working out for them.
Sure.
Now we've got Texas landed the #1 transfer portal for next year's football. Their top donor just sold his company for $4 billion.
Yeah.
If things don't work out for them, do people reassess transfer portal? And it's like, well, maybe we're not meant, you're not supposed to be the best at that.
Right.
You're not supposed to bring everybody in.
Yeah.
But you have to use it here and there.
Yeah. I think it. Yeah, because you're seeing that a lot, I think, in college basketball, especially this year, past couple of years, where it's going out and just getting all the best players doesn't necessarily work. It's like the pieces have to fit.
Yeah.
And, I've really loved the way that, T. Jaltzberg and his staff have constructed their rosters, because it's those guys out there are certainly not some of the best players in college basketball, but they all just fit really well together, right? Like Brant Chatfield, he transferred from Seattle. Deshaun Jackson came from Charlotte. And the best transfer on the roster is Joshua Jefferson, who came from St. Mary's. And I just think it's sometimes fit is better than just sheer talent, right? And I think maybe college sports start to revert to that a little bit, and maybe revert even more to, the value of high school recruiting as well, because I feel like it's become way more, transfer portal heavy these days, not just in college basketball, but college sports in general. I mean, football is kind of the main one we talk about as well. But Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see in the next couple of years what that looks like because you bring up a couple good examples of schools that have done that. It hasn't really worked out too well.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, we'll keep an eye on it as things go.
No doubt. Well, not too much else Big 12 basketball wise. I think we spent a good amount of time talking Houston. Wheels have fallen back off for Kansas State after they just went on this random like Linsanity run over the course of
what
6
was it,
games.
like 6 games, and they were the number one team,
Yep.
and now they're like 150th since then.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That metrics like screenshot.
I think it was
yeah,
Porvik,
yeah,
and it was like for those 6 games, they were the number one team in the nation.
wild.
Before then, they were 180th. Now they're 134th. It's like insane.
I don't know. It's interesting what's going on down there.
Yeah. Arizona loss looks better and better for the Clones, though. They've really picked up steam.
It does.
And
Yep.
Tech is, I think it's really between Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, and Tech.
Those are probably the 5. Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's BYU there, or the 4. It's BYU there at 5. Is Kansas still at 6 technically?
Yeah, well, Kansas, Baylor, and TCU tied at 6, but
Okay.
Kansas is ranked above them.
Gotcha. Yeah, interesting Big 12 this year. At some point we need to go back and look at our preseason Big 12 standings we made.
I think we do
sure.
that first week of the Big 12 tournament.
Love that idea once it's finalized. Because I think they will look quite a bit different. Probably not as different as football because football was insane this year with how different expectations were. Basketball, I think, in terms of the top and the bottom, ultimately it'll look pretty similar. Just more so where we slotted teams at in certain areas. But shall we make some picks here?
Let's do it, Caleb.
Sweet.
You are 59 and 44 to refresh the record. I am 54 and 49. Let's start with the 4 basketball games. Tomorrow, the battle for Michigan, Michigan State, and Michigan, 2 top 25 teams going at it.
Okay. You said Michigan State and Michigan? Sorry.
Correct.
Okay. 1 second here. Let me pull up this matchup so I can do a little
Be number
quick
14,
analysis.
Michigan State at number 12,
Okay.
Michigan.
I'm gonna go with Izzo and the Spartans here. I don't feel like I've followed Big Ten basketball that much this year at all, other than just the fact that it's kind of a mid league, in comparison to the Big 12 and the SEC. But yeah, I'll take Izzo and Sparty on the road in a tough environment tomorrow. I'll give Michigan though. Dusty May's done a fantastic job.
Fantastic.
Is this year 1 for him, or is this
I
year 2?
think it's year 2.
Okay, because obviously the Juwan Howard experiment was just a complete disaster.
Was never a good idea.
No.
I mean, this is kind of the battle for the Big Ten regular season as
Yeah,
well.
probably.
1 versus 2. Michigan State's half a game behind. So,
What do you got here?
I'm gonna go with Dusty May. This Michigan team, they're really
Sure.
good. They're playing at home, 5 straight against some pretty good teams. Michigan State drops 1 to a bad Indiana and a bad UCLA team. I think Michigan, I think they go out there and get it done at the Chrysler Center. It's going to be a fantastic game. Definitely one that I'll have my eye on. I don't know about you personally, but probably some other better mid-conference games to watch than this. But certainly one that I'll have my eyes on.
Sure.
Saturday, Tennessee goes to Texas A&M.
Man, it's unbelievable how good of matchups we get in the SEC night in and night out. I'll
50-50 split on ESPN.
yeah, man. Good games you're picking here, Casey, for us to select this weekend.
Appreciate it.
I'll take the home team here in A&M. I think this SEC conference just kind of cannibalizes itself, with how good of matchups they have on a week-to-week basis. I think I'll take that. Rick Barnes, I would say, is probably the better coach in this matchup, but I'll take the home team and the Aggies.
Yeah, I think I'm going to roll with the Aggies too. A tough loss to Mississippi State on the road just on Tuesday. Tennessee's coming off a loss to Kentucky a week ago. But I think at the end of the day, A&M is fantastic. They're playing at home. Reed Arena is going to be absolutely crazy. Tennessee does have the number 1 defense. I don't think it prevails in this game. I think A&M wants to bounce back after that Mississippi State game. This is where they go out and get it, an upset victory over the Volunteers.
Alrighty.
We got a Clones game on Saturday. Iowa State going to Houston.
Ooh, we're picking this, huh?
We're picking this one.
I suppose we might as well. I mean, it's a top 10 matchup. Yeah.
Clones don't win this, Big 12 might be over for
It
regular
could be.
season.
Yeah. This is probably a lot of eyes are on this one this weekend for sure. 1 p.m. tip as well. Exciting stuff. I am just going to take the Clones because that's just kind of how it works around these parts. I think I think people, from what I've kind of seen online, people are doing a good job of tampering expectations for this. They know that this is going to be a tough game in a tough atmosphere, and I'm really bummed, honestly, that that Iowa State wasn't able to host Houston this year at Hilton. I think that would have been awesome.
Yeah.
And that's just the bummer. That's the danger with these large conferences is you do have uneven scheduling, and that is a disadvantage for Iowa State to, only get Houston on the road. And it goes the same for other teams too. Like last year, Iowa State played Kansas once, and it was at Hilton, right? Didn't have to go to Allen Fieldhouse. Like it goes both ways. So it's a bummer. And Houston is. I don't think the line has been set yet. Maybe it has by some sports books, but I would venture to guess Iowa State's anywhere from a 6 to 8 point underdog in this game, which is probably rightful. But we'll take the Clones here in a big ol' upset to really, really start, being in contention again for that 1 seed.
Yeah, I'm gonna put my fandom aside on this one and just go impartial. I'm gonna take Houston here. I'm not saying I don't want the Clones to win. Obviously, gonna be cheering for them. Really want them to pull it out, but this Houston team's just so good, and sometimes, like, as a fan, you got to put, like, your fandom and your bias aside and just be like, take this game for what it is. It's a fantastic matchup. 2 top 10 teams competing for a number 1 spot in March Madness and competing for the regular season title.
Yeah. And
it's going to be a great game to watch. I can't wait. I missed most of it, but definitely catching the second half. But man, it's this Houston team. They're really good right now. They're on a roll.
They're solid. Kelvin Sampson always just is able to create a group of just solid, consistent basketball players. And I really thought they would fall off a bit this year after losing Jamal Shed because he was so much of that team last year. But they've been just as good. In fact, they've been better in the Big 12 than they were last year.
Yeah, definitely. They're just a consistent team. And I think they get it done. I think if anyone in the Big 12 can beat Houston, it's Iowa State.
Sure.
I think they've got the defensive matchup for it. They've kind of got that energy and charisma to them where, we've stuck together. We know what it's like to play as a team for X amount of years now because you've got these guys playing together for a while. We can go in there and we can get it done. But if it ain't Iowa State, I don't know who's going into Houston with a victory anytime soon.
Yeah. Texas Tech did do it, but I think
early in the season.
Wasn't
that like first game?
It was definitely a while ago. I think 9 out of 10 times Houston probably wins that game. 8 to 9 out of 10 times.
It was 1st of February.
Was it?
Beginning of the month. Okay. Went to OT as well.
Yeah,
they kind of had a lot of things go their way to get it done too.
Right. Well, wasn't that the game, though, where Grant McCaslin got ejected and then somebody else did, too?
Yeah. Toppin got ejected early on. McCaslin was pissed. They ejected McCaslin as well. And,
that's right.
That's an
impressive. It does, yes. So sometimes that's better for you when something like that happens. But
you always hear coaches talk about that.
Yes.
Get a tee to fire the team up.
That happens a lot. But yeah, I think 8 to 9 times out of 10, Houston wins that game against Tech.
Yeah, definitely. And then we're going to go to Houston again, Monday. Texas Tech Houston rematch. This one, it's in the Union Supermarkets Arena in Lubbock.
I love this game. This is going to be a must-watch game on Monday night. And I'm going to take the Red Raiders here in the sweep against Houston this year. I think Texas Tech, that home venue, like you mentioned, this place, it's not the best atmosphere in the Big 12, but it's up there. And they get rocking when they bring a really good team into town, especially a rival in the state of Texas, right?
Yeah.
When you've got a Houston coming in there, that place will be rocking. I have really loved this Texas Tech team this year, and that Iowa State win in overtime in Lubbock looks better and better all the time.
Yeah.
I think Texas Tech, let's see, who do they play on Saturday? So they get home against West Virginia, should probably win that one. They're going to be out for still a vengeance after that TCU loss on Tuesday this past week. I think they get it done.
Yeah, I'm going to go Texas Tech as well. They play so well at home. I feel like they're a different team at home than they are on the road. I want to see, trying to pull it up quick, what their comparison record is.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Home and away. Texas Tech. Not sure why it brought me to the ACC. Texas Tech at home is 13-2. On the road is 6-2. They are tied with BYU and then behind the Clones and Houston for home records in the Big 12. I think they find a way to get it done. Like you said, entertaining game. Definitely going to be tuned in. All eyes on this, but give me the Red Raiders to pull it off.
Love it. That again, if Iowa State can, that game becomes that much bigger for our purposes, because if Iowa State can find a way to win on Saturday, then you've got that one on Monday night. If Texas Tech wins that one too, all of a sudden it's like, oh man, Big 12. Because you're right, all they have to do is tie with Houston.
Yeah.
They don't have to beat them outright in terms of the conference record. So yeah, very interesting.
That was the 4 basketball games. Speaking of 4 nations face off final in 2 hours from now.
Bang.
The United States and Canada. USA gets game 1 in the round robin. Now they face off again, Caleb. Winner takes all, country and pride on the line. Who do you got?
I don't even need to analyze this at all. This is a patriotic podcast. We love our country. We absolutely love our country. This has really taken just the whole world, honestly, by storm. I didn't even know this was a thing. I think you follow the NHL more than I did.
This year.
Yeah, I didn't know this was a thing until obviously the fights broke out in that initial matchup, which that was what really got people interested in this whole matchup. But yeah, USA all the way here. I wish I had like an Uncle Sam mascot head to put on like Lee Corso right now. Or like Jay Williams when he does
just a bald eagle mask to throw on.
That would have been sweet if I had planned more in advance. But yeah, USA all the way, baby, for the 2-0 sweep against Canada and the 4 nations.
Yeah, against the 51st state. Give me America all the way. Just a fantastic game 1 that I tuned into. We'll be catching second and third periods after practice tonight, but this will be. I cannot wait for this game. Freebird will be going off in my apartment about every 4 to 5 minutes.
I love it so much. Lee Greenwood, God bless the USA. Come on, baby. Yeah.
Courtesy of the red, white, and blue.
How many fights do we see break out tonight?
I think one. One in that first 10-minute stretch. I think they set the tone, but then this is such an important game. Like
they understand there's no messing around here.
Yeah, I think fights will break out, but you won't see the 3 in 9 seconds again.
Canada, get ready to learn 51st state, buddy, as Adam Silver would say.
Get ready to learn Freebird. That is our goal song.
Yeah.
So
I love it. Yeah, we got all the American music on repeat tonight. Alrighty. That's the pick segment, eh? Let's go.
There we go.
Let's do 3 for 3. We'll do our one not 3 for 3, which was introduced the last time we podcast. Just something that is not good. I'll let you go first. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't make a 3 for 3 list today, so I'll just let you do yours, and I'll see if I can come up with 3 of them before you're done.
He's winging it. All right, so my not 3 for 3 to start. Carl Ravitch fell for the statistic that the SEC
my gosh, dude.
82-82 since January 4th. And he talked about for about a solid minute, there's no one dominant team, like anyone can win this. No, Carl, they're 82-82 because they're all playing each other. One SEC team wins, one SEC team loses. You're 1-1 every game. So that's why they're 82-82, Carl. Hopefully you're listening to this. That's how scheduling kind of works when we get into basketball.
It's unfortunate because I like Karl Ravech. I think he's a good broadcaster. He's a really good baseball broadcaster. He's usually doing he's doing a lot of MLB playoff games and I guess and Sunday night baseball on ESPN as well. I think so. Yeah, because ESPN carries CWS. But my goodness, I mean that's a nightmare. You know, you and I both have broadcasting histories. That's one thing that obviously you don't count on happening, but sometimes your brain just leaves your body, and it certainly did it for Karl Ravech in that moment. So that's a bummer. I'll let you keep on going here.
My number 3. Speaking of four nations, Omaha native, University of Nebraska Omaha hockey grad Jake Gensel, 2 goals and puts the nail in the coffin in our first matchup over Canada. Lit the game up. Gensel was fantastic all night. You know, it's great to see someone not only from Omaha, but also who graduated at UNO, which is prime time hockey. If you're a hockey recruit looking to go anywhere, Omaha is definitely top 3, top 5. And it was great to see that on the national stage.
Love it. Go ahead again here.
Number 2, I sent this one. This one's fantastic. Congratulations to Nebraska High School Hastings St. Cecilia getting the number 1 seed in their Class D1 bracket after going 1-20. Electric record on the season. Congratulations. Apparently they played like no one in Class D, but their opponents had the highest win rate. I'm not sure really what they did for their schedule, but you first with the 1-20 record, second place is like 9-14 and only has themselves to blame. So
that's pretty unbelievable.
It was insane.
Yeah.
Well, I saw that one roll across my Twitter feed, and it was like, here's the Class D1 bracket, and I was like, it's just not right.
You don't see stuff like that ever. Are those all 3 of yours?
No, I got one more because that was I had the not 3 for 3.
Okay, gotcha.
So my number 1, Auburn's Cade Ballou homers on opening day of the college baseball season after losing his mother to cancer earlier that morning. Definitely tough things for him, but to go out there and just have such a memorable moment in your opening day and after a moment like that, that's just awesome to see.
That's cool. That's really awesome. We're here for the wholesome content on the Rundown with Caleb and Casey.
It always swings around once a week or so.
Yes, every once in a while. I have one, and actually, you know what? We'll save it for next week. I think because this hasn't happened yet. It's more of like I feel like it'd be better to do next week because it's yet to happen.
All right.
I'm
interested.
We'll save it. It's really not like that crazy at all. More of just kind of a shout out to a couple of basketball teams, but they play this weekend. So we'll see how that goes, and then maybe give it a shout out next week in the 3 for 3. But you have some shout outs to make today, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of shout outs,
shout out a couple kids that I coach wanted some shout outs. So Isaac, Casper, Brady, Adrian, Jack, shout outs to you guys. Fantastic season. Boys finished the season 3-1. Third place across the entire tournament last weekend. So 6th grade's done. 7th grade practicing 2 hours. So those boys got one more tournament in them this weekend. But it's been a good season so far. Just tying the bow on it, Just got to tie the bow on everything.
Good job, fellas. Coach Casey running a good ship over there. Have they received as TJ Otzelberger in talks with them yet? Is that going on?
I think you can't be in talks with them till their freshman season.
Sure. I guess they are in sixth grade. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's still got we know we communicate regularly.
Yeah, of course.
Send stats back and forth. Some of the plays that you see Iowa State draw up are just mine. So yeah,
it's how it goes. I mean, you learn by observing, right?
Uh-huh.
That's some learn by doing, others learn by observing, and certainly people learn from observing the coaching masterclass that is Casey Schiessler and his 6th grade all Iowa attack team. But awesome,
without a doubt.
Alrighty, good to be back this week. I think that's all we've got today. Thank you all for tuning in as always. Subscribe on the new YouTube if you haven't yet. Just the Rundown with Caleb and Casey. Follow us on Twitter at @the_rundownpod. And have a great rest of your week. Stay warm. It's going to get warm soon.
Next week.
Hopefully.
In the 40s.
Let's go. Shorts and a t-shirt. And we'll see you guys next week.
Roll Clones.